If you have been on the fence about whether you should get a Kindle or continue reading the way that you currently are, then this video is for you, because I have been testing reading on the Kindle for the past 1 year and 4 months in conjunction with the other methods that I used to use, which was primarily reading physical books and reading the Kindle app on my iPhone. And so I wanted to make this video because, when you first get the Kindle, if I recorded this a month in, my review may have been totally different because I'm excited about it, I'm using it. But as I have had over almost 1.5 years at this point, getting to use this thing, I have a couple insights, and hopefully after this video, you'll be able to make a better decision on if this is for you or not. So let me start with the problem that I had that made me want to consider this. So when I was younger, I primarily read audiobooks and I read Kindle because I was doing an internship in San Diego, worked in the Bay Area, didn't have a lot of space to be building out a library like I did maybe in my childhood home. So I gravitated towards audiobooks because they were convenient. I was able to consume so many more of them because of my commute time. And I gravitated towards Kindle copies of the book because I could read them on my phone. I could read them on my iPad. And then I started to basically fall back in love with physical books, right? Especially as I had more space to basically begin to accumulate them. And then I basically went back the other direction again, where I was like, you know what? I'm going to slim down my bookshelf. I gave away a bunch of my physical books and went to a Kindle version again. Now, the Kindle version that I was reading during this period was on my iPad. And the iPad, although it looks very beautiful and colorful and vibrant, it's super bright. After about 30 minutes or 45 minutes of reading on that, I definitely would start to get a bit of a headache. And, using screens all day already, I wanted to kind of protect my eyes and give them a break because I already wear glasses and I want to kind of, maintain the vision and protect the vision that I already have. And so this problem was also even worse if I was reading in the car. So if I was ever on a road trip or something and wasn't driving and I'm trying to read on my phone, I would get kind of car sick to some extent because of this screen. And so I remember looking into the Kindle as a way to basically reduce some eye strain. And I also found this other annoying thing with physical books that you can probably relate to, which is when you are reading at night, let's say you're on a plane or you're in your own home reading at night. If you don't have a light on somewhere, or even if you have a light on, but it's not in the right position, it's not illuminating things fully, it can be pretty hard to read. And so what's really nice about something like the Kindle is that this still has a nice, backlight, but whatever method they are using to basically build this stuff, I can noticeably tell that I could read on here for hours as they promise without getting a headache, without feeling like I've been staring at a screen for hours, versus the difference on an iPad or an iPhone was very, very distinct if it was for a longer period of time. So the Kindle model that I have, by the way, is the 2022 version. This is not the Kindle Paperwhite. The Paperwhite came out shortly after this, but it is still very similar. Like the Paperwhite is basically 0.2 inches bigger. I think it's considered kind of waterproof, and you can switch the light from white backlight to a more warmer light. But really, let's focus on the concept of the Kindle in general, right? Because one of the things looking at this at first, I was like, this is kind of odd. Why is it so small? Why is it not bigger like a normal sized book? And I don't know if this is where it comes from, but I've been reading about the history of books, a book called Papyrus. And before Papyrus was a thing, the version of what resembled a book used to be cuneiform tablet. And so I wonder if this is meant to resemble kind of how tablets used to be placed on a bookshelf, the way we have books on a bookshelf now. And so I do love that when you hold this, you can kind of you're not touching the screen or anything. You have enough margin on the side of the screen and the bottom to kind of grip it like this. And when you are reading while you're laying down, it is just so convenient. It's so light. It still feels like a piece of electronic, it's got a tiny bit of weight to it, but it is so light. It doesn't feel cheap and it's disposable or something. I'll tell you one of the things I was disappointed by though when I first started using this was how it feels a little laggy, right? And this is something that I think the latest Kindle Paperwhite version has solved because they have a faster processor that they put in there. But it seems common even with something like the Remarkable, where you're kind of switching anything that does not have like an iPad-like processor in it, and that doesn't have the full backlight that makes it kind of a computer or whatever. That seems to be one of the trade-offs, right? Is that sometimes when you make a highlight or when you turn a page, like it can feel like the response time is just a tiny bit slower. But to be honest with you, it hasn't bothered me to the degree where I just wrote it off completely. Now, of course, the other thing is when you are traveling. So if you are traveling if you look at the physical books on my bookshelf, I might bring 1 or 2 max, right? Just because of the space that it might take up in my backpack or suitcase or things like that. But what's really, really amazing is often if I like a book, I might get the Kindle version of it as well, just so I can have it on the go. Or I'll start with the Kindle version. If I really like it, I'll get the paperback one as well. And so I find that, because you'll hear this a lot, is like when people get Kindles, they feel like they're reading more. And my theory behind that, it is totally true. I find that as well. It's simply because of the fact that when you turn this on, like literally you can lay it flat. You don't need any hands to be basically using this. So you could be doing something else and you could be stretching. Like I was stretching the other day in like kind of a split position, and I was reading this page by page, versus if I had the physical book version open like this. Hardcovers tend to lay flat, but sometimes they don't, right? Sometimes you need both hands to kind of keep it where it is and things like that. And of course, highlighting a physical book is a little more tedious, even though I love it and I love continuing to do that. It is just way faster and easier to definitely highlight on a Kindle. The other thing that's a huge benefit of the Kindle is text size. So for example, there's a couple books on my shelf where, okay, the text size is definitely a little smaller than I prefer. And to read it, I can still get away with it, but it would be nice to be able to enlarge the text size. And so I love that you can do that. There are times where I, want to read small as well on here, and I can do that. The one thing I will tell you that I kind of miss, or I feel that is a little lacking, and this may not matter to you. I mean, I've talked with some friends who, have different versions as well, and everybody's different with this. But if you are somebody who really appreciates like the physical version of the book, like the color of the cover, the tactile feeling of having it in your hands, like the thing with this, as you can see, there's no color, right? And part of that, if you get the Kindle that has color, that's basically at that point a tablet, it now has lights and things that are basically, defeating the purpose of getting it for reducing eye strain. And so that is a trade-off that you make, is when you go with one of these, Kindles, is they don't have color. It's just kind of black, white, gray, or whatever. And so that part is a little, like, I noticed that when I go on the Kindle on my iPhone app, it's like vibrant, beautiful colors, right? If the color is red, if it's popping out at you red. But obviously on this, all the colors are the same no matter what cover you have. And so it kind of really standardizes things a little bit. Now, the battery life is freaking amazing. I mean, it's something that lasts for weeks, I find. Of course, during certain periods, if you're using it heavily, or if you leave it on and you don't have automatic shut off or whatever, and it's just on for hours, like that's going to drain your battery. But if you're just casually reading, a couple hours a day, like you can get a lot out of this. It is not like an iPad. I hated that about the iPad, and reading on there is not just reading, but if you do anything on an iPad, the battery drains so quickly, especially the older that the iPad gets. And so that is something that was really annoying, is like, you could be doing something as simple as reading on an iPad and your juice is just going away, and before you know it, you got to charge it again. Versus this, I find it has the same, you charge it with the same USB-C cable and charges up pretty quickly as well, and it lasts a very long time. Reading offline also has not been an issue if I have the books already downloaded. Of course, your highlights and things like that sync up when you are connected back into Wi-Fi, but reading on the beach and reading by the pool, things like that were really nice. Speaking of reading by the pool and the beach, I discovered this as well. So when you are sweating, right, when you're really hot, your hands get kind of sweaty, like in a physical book, because it's paper, it will begin to get kind of damp, right? Versus, or like, let's say, your hands are wet from the pool or whatever, like you got to dry off your hands before you kind of open the book. Versus, even though this version is not waterproof, like it does not feel like a big deal if my hand's a little wet or if it starts sweating to like be able to hold it and use it, because I can just use probably a screen wipe or something and clean it if I want to. So it's very durable. That part I really, really love about it. Now, there was also this common noticing when I was getting this that people mentioned in the reviews, which is, oh, despite, wanting to read on the Kindle, like I always find myself just reading the most on my iPhone. And I found that true to some extent in the beginning, because despite having this, the convenience of opening up my phone and kind of being able to scroll a couple pages on Kindle versus opening this up or having this on hand all the time, I found myself quickly kind of going back and forth, consuming some on my iPhone, and then, syncing to the furthest page when I open it up on the Kindle. Now, the convenience factor is true. Like, I think it is super convenient to be able to quickly open up. It's not drawing a bunch of attention to you. You could be reading anything. It's a really nice experience. But just like with anything on your phone, you can get lost. Like, you went to open the app to go into Kindle, but before you know it, you're scrolling on some social media app. So you are, of course, still susceptible to that. But I will say that the Kindle app on iPhones and iPads are just so beautifully designed. They are so vibrant, and they make you kind of feel excited to use it, right? So it counts a streak every time you kind of open up the Kindle app. I found that that doesn't happen on the normal Kindle. I wish that was connected. So like if you open up the Kindle on your iPhone, that counts as a streak the same way that if you open this up, but it's not the case. If you don't open up the Kindle app on the iPhone, that streak counter, won't detect that. So convenience factor, absolutely. It's so much smoother. You can scroll, you can flip pages side to side, versus I find like here, you're not really flipping pages, you're just kind of tapping it, and that tap kind of moves over to the next page. But again, that might be me romanticizing the tactile, physical feeling of holding a book in your hands. Now, again, one of the conveniences that you get with the Kindle is the fact that books are just typically cheaper on Kindle, right? You're not paying $15, $20, $30 for a paperback or hardcover. You might be paying 99 cents. You might be paying $3, $5. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, which I did try for a month, you can rent up to like 30 titles, just like you would at a library at a time. And so there's all these books that are typically available on Kindle Unlimited. And if you do actually take advantage and read them, you will find yourself saving a ton of money, because the same books you'd pay maybe even for the Kindle version $5 or $10 for the copy, but you're getting dozens and dozens of titles for free at once. So that was useful, but at the same time, I didn't use it solely. Like, I used it a lot, but once I started doing more physical books and a combination of both, I was just kind of like, I'll get the Kindle version when I want to get it, just because some titles just aren't included in Kindle Unlimited. But definitely worthwhile to check out if you are going to be reading on Kindle. Now, let me also mention, if you read fiction, so I have a friend who reads fiction, and they basically obviously fiction books I've just found to be way thicker than nonfiction books in many cases. And so that can get quite thick and heavy to carry around or to hold up and things like that. And they seem to be really enjoying having it on the Kindle and not bothered, like not romanticizing missing the cover and things like that I am saying to you right now. Like, that part still feels like, it's not there. And so what is the solution to this, right? I have found that the solution is one of these concepts that I wrote about in my book, Pod Mahal, which is function over form, right? Most of us want to kind of find the perfect form over the function. And so we go, do we want to read on iPhone? Do I want to read on Kindle? And it's like you want to lock into one of these methods just to keep it simple. But I found that the truth is that if you are a voracious reader, then it is really about kind of using it to further your purpose, right? So if your goal is to just read more, who cares if it's happening on the physical version of the book or the Kindle version of the book? Maybe sometimes you can read on the Kindle version. Maybe sometimes when you're in line and you have access to your phone, you can do the Kindle app. So I find that being flexible with using the different methods has made me feel less stressed out about like, oh, am I using my Kindle enough? Am I getting the most out of it? It's like, I am. Even though I still, primarily read physical books, guess what? There are still times every night where once the light's off and it's just easy easier to have the Kindle in my hand, then I'm flipping through the Kindle instead of a physical book. So I think it comes back to what times and environments and situations are you typically reading in? If you find yourself constantly reading at night, or while you are laying down, or while you are on the plane, or while you're on a train commuting, then you need to factor that in, versus if you typically are comfortably getting to, sit at a desk, right? And lay the book open, the physical book open flat, and have a highlighter and have notes. Like, that's a different experience than, when you're on the go or reading at the pool. And so the reason I mention that is because don't get the Kindle envisioning yourself reading it in a scenario in which you rarely are in. So what I mean by that is, if you're not really traveling that often, but you're like, oh, I want to get it so I can read it while I'm traveling, like, that's the wrong way to kind of envision it. It's more so about think of the day-to-day times where you're going to be reading the most. Where will you be? What will feel easiest, right? You might want to read while you walk on the treadmill or something, right? Okay. It's easier to hold a Kindle in your hand if you do that than maybe a physical book. That's something, when I'm biking indoors and not, running outside as much as I am maybe in the summer, that's something that I found myself doing. And obviously that was much easier to do with the Kindle or with the, iPhone version of the app than just a physical book. So really it does, nothing can beat the convenience factor of this tool, And I think one thing that I will say that I do appreciate about it, I think Jeff Bezos said this in one of his shareholder letters, but he was talking about how, the tools that we use evolve with us over time, and how the Kindle was created as this tool to preserve and offset some of the damage that happens from, the proliferation of content, this short form information snacking concept that became popular, like when it was first beginning to take storm. And we're like, the short form stuff is useful and quick, but I don't know if this is like the best for our brains long term, right? And so I believe the Kindle was kind of this offering to the world to preserve reading, to preserve long form content and reading, and to be able to do it on a device that wasn't just your phone or connected to a laptop or something. It felt like, this is made for reading. This is what it is for. It feels nice to exclusively only do that, which brings up the question, if you are looking for other features, like, I want to be able to also go on the internet, and I also want to be able to do this other stuff, like, you are likely more looking for a tablet than you are looking for a Kindle. And I can relate to that because I went through that when I was, kind of thinking about it as well. But you have to be okay with being able to do less. That's the whole point of getting this thing, is so that it does less and it forces you to just focus on this the way that a normal book would. And so I wanted to highlight that, because if you watch this with the hopes of also getting to blend it with the need for a new tablet, I don't think that the Kindle is going to serve that purpose for you, at least not the Kindle Paperwhite, right? I think at that point you are looking for more iPad-like features. And, if you read for less than 30 minutes at a time and not that often, that might be a superior option for you. But if you plan on reading more consistently, reading longer, reading more often, and making the habit just a little bit more focused rather than oh yeah, that'd be nice to have when I travel, or do read on it once every couple of weeks, then, iPad's for you. But if you are looking to kind of focus a little bit more and kind of dedicate more time to reading, I can absolutely see how getting the Kindle, even if you only used it 50% or 30% of the time, if I'm not using it every day, I'm using it once a week, I would still consider this to have been worth the investment over the past year and 4 months. And the other thing that I love about this is it does not have the same planned obsolescence that's built into iPhones and things like that. iPads and iPhones are designed to be able to have to get a new one after 3 years, right? It starts working slower, it can't update anymore, the storage is full, blah, blah, blah. Versus, for whatever reason, the simpler technology that this stuff is built with, it lasts a very long time. As I mentioned to you, I've had the Kindle Fire, the original Kindle, for over, 10, 15 years or whatever it is at this point, and it's still turned on. which is crazy to think about. So that's cool, is that even though there's new versions and models and stuff that are coming out, I don't feel this pull to like, oh, I need to get the Kindle Paperwhite, I need to trade it in for the newer one. The simplicity of this is something that you fall in love with over time, especially as you read it more. Now, my honest opinion, if you are looking to go all in on a method where you're like, oh, I want to go all in on physical books or all in on Kindle, I don't recommend that, because that is what I tried a little bit. And I told you I gave away so many books in that process, like boxes and boxes of books. And after I gave them away, like a year and a half later, when I started reading more physical stuff again, I was like, oh, I wish I hadn't given those away. Like, there are so many books I gave away that were like classics, Shoe Dog and biographies and things that, like, now it is more expensive to get copies of those than it was 10 15 years ago when I got them. And I wish I had that option to be able to pull it off my shelf again, which I enjoy reading like that. I always say I treat my bookshelf like a bookstore, pull off something and kind of enjoy flipping to a page and reading it. That randomness, that spontaneity that you have with physical books, I don't feel that as much with this. Yes, I can open up the Kindle and I can go and pull up a book from like 5 years ago, but I find that just like a phone, where like you download an app and you can kind of forget that it exists until you need it again, that can happen in the Kindle, right? Because this is the only physical representation of it. It's not like there's 10 of these for 10 different books, versus that is true for physical books. It's a physical constant reminder every time I see my shelf or pass by it, oh right, I should check that out. So that is missing and does require some discipline if you plan to commit yourself to reading, fully on Kindle, is like going in, browsing, looking through your Kindle shelf the same way you might look through a normal bookshelf, just so you make sure that, you're not missing some of the best titles that you've gotten. But again, that's just my opinion after battling with this for years and years, and kind of at the end of it deciding, what, I'll do both. Like, I don't need to go all in on one or the other. I'm really grateful to have some space to be able to build out a library, and would love to continue to preserve that space over time wherever I move, is continuing to build out the physical library. I love that feeling. So hopefully, in 10, 20 years, I'll have a whole wall of books and they will all be full. But it does not take away from, when I'm traveling and need the convenience of reading on Kindle, like, I will probably bring this with me, and I may get the Kindle version of whatever book that I really, really want to get through on that trip. It's just, again, it's the convenience thing, right? It's like newspapers, you can romanticize when newspapers were delivered and they were huge and all that stuff, but like, it is just more convenient and cheaper to, read that article in the app. So the convenience factor is always going to be hard to beat, but I do think that just like handwriting is still worth doing, even though it is analog, even though it's slower, it's proven to help you learn and retain better than if you were just typing things, right? There will always be a place for the slower, more analog, classic version. So I hope this was useful. If you've been on the fence, should I get an iPad? Should I get a Kindle? Should I keep reading physical books? Like, I hope this encourages you to lean into the ways that you are going to read more, and also remain open and flexible to the idea that you can take advantage of these multiple mediums, right? Back in the day when books were first invented, like, it's crazy to think that, if you needed a copy to be at another library, you had to have an actual human scribe copy the book and write it, and somebody had to know how to read and write to be able to do that in the first place, and then you would be able to get a copy to that library. And so it's pretty amazing the way Jeff Bezos says that his vision for the Kindle was like to have any title, any book in the world in your hands in 30 seconds. I do think that it fulfills on that promise. My wife and I just did that the other day. She's like, hey, can you get me this book? Like, we gave the physical version of the book away to somebody, and we didn't want to, we just wanted to get it back, like, not from the person, but we wanted to have a copy ourselves. And so, she got it on Kindle. Now, my wife is different. She likes to use it on her iPhone. But again, she's not using the iPhone to read for hours and hours and hours on end. If you find yourself drifting into that territory, I have a feeling you're going to quickly find yourself in a position where, you want to consider something like the Kindle, which is lighter on the eyes. Anyway, leave a comment. Would love to hear what you think on this. Like, subscribe, wherever you're at. That goes a long way. And check out the links in the description below. I appreciate you hanging out, and I'll see you on the next one.